Hey patent friends, welcome back to another video. I want to talk about who you can trust with your invention ideas, and specifically before you file patent applications, who can you really trust talking to things about or showing your invention to. There are some things that you can do that are going to actually forfeit your patent rights and could allow people to steal your ideas, which is not a good thing to do, and so you have to be very careful. On the other hand, by keeping things too secret, you harm your business. Businesses are not like mushrooms where they do well in the dark, so you need to be able to get out there. So the question is, how can you safely talk to people about your invention or idea, and who can you trust with your invention idea? Stick around, we are starting right now. So for those of you who are new here, my name is Dylan Adams. I am a patent attorney and author of the best-selling book, Patents Demystified, which is an insider's guide to protecting ideas and inventions used by inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups worldwide, including at top universities like Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. You might also recognize me from my appearance on CNBC's hit show, The Profit with Marcus Lemonis. So this channel is all about giving you the insider secrets of how I help my clients, whether they be Fortune 100 companies, individual garage inventors, or startups, protect their ideas and inventions and make them successful. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell icon so you don't miss any important videos, because we've got a lot of great content. All right, let's go ahead and get right into it. So when it comes to determining who you can trust with your invention ideas, there are kind of two issues here. One is that of forfeiting patent rights, which means that even if you were to file a patent application, your rights, your patent that may even issue would be invalid, okay? Or, you really wouldn't be able to file because the patent attorney would say, yeah, like I can't in good faith file this, you've forfeited your rights, okay? That's one issue. But two is the sort of the theoretical potential of somebody stealing your idea and running with it instead of you. And I want to talk about those two things. So the first thing is potentially forfeiting patent rights. Now it's important to note that patent rights start to be lost upon a first public disclosure, public use, or offer for sale, okay? Again, that's public disclosure, public use, or offer for sale. Now, in most foreign jurisdictions outside of the US, your rights are automatically lost upon a first public disclosure, public use, or offer for sale. In the United States, you have 1 year from a first public disclosure, public use, or offer for sale to file a patent application. Otherwise, you then forfeit your rights. Now, that's an important thing to understand is, okay, if you tell people about it, that may be forfeiting your patent rights if it's done in a public way, if it's, used in public, or if you're, talking about things and you're making an offer for sale. So especially with an offer for sale, even if it's a fully confidential offer for sale, that starts forfeiting patent rights. In the United States, yeah, you make this offer for sale, like you forfeit your patent rights 1 year from then, whether you know it or not. And in a lot of foreign jurisdictions, you'll be forfeiting your patent rights as well. It doesn't matter how confidential that disclosure is, or you have NDAs in place or whatever. That offer for sale, that is going to be forfeiting patent rights. Now, when it comes to public disclosures, you don't want to make disclosures like, say on like social media or post YouTube videos, things like that. Those are definitely public disclosures, but you're probably not thinking about that. You're probably thinking about keeping things super secret. I don't want to tell anybody. I don't even want to talk to my, wife, husband, or spouse about this. I want to keep this totally secret. Now, that's not always necessary. Now, you can, as long as there's at least implied confidentiality, it's not going to be considered a public disclosure, okay? So even if there's a confidential relationship and there's implied confidentiality based on, say a friendship or a marriage or just, say a partnership that you have or the context of how you're meeting, that's going to be considered, not a public disclosure. But, if it's, done at a trade show or if it's done in the middle of a Starbucks or something, that's not necessarily going to be a public disclosure, and that's not something that you should do, okay? Now, when it comes to who you can really trust with your ideas, you have to consider that, okay, you may do a private disclosure and it may have at least implied confidentiality, or maybe even you have a non-disclosure agreement with somebody. You need to trust that that person is not then going to post it on YouTube or, post it on social media, because that will forfeit your patent rights, whether you know it or not. Whether you intended it or whether even you have a cause of action against somebody because they violated an NDA, which a lot of times NDAs really are not that enforceable and can be kind of worthless, but that's a whole nother video. Even if that's the case, you still forfeit your patent rights. Even if somebody steals your ideas through industrial espionage or something, and that goes public, that still forfeits your patent rights. So that's something to keep in mind, is you want to make sure that you can trust people that they're not going to publicly disseminate these things, because that may result in forfeiting your patent rights. Now, what about the whole idea that somebody may steal your ideas? Honestly, very rarely do people actually steal ideas. It's something that is more theoretical than actually happens. Because it's so difficult, and people don't usually appreciate how difficult it is to take an idea and turn that into a good product or business, and then and actually then sell those things. It's really, really difficult to do that sort of stuff. So a lot of times, I wouldn't worry too much about the whole issue of people stealing things. What's more important to understand is that you forfeit your patent rights upon first public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale, and that starts to erode your patent rights. That's what's most important when it comes to keeping your invention ideas safe. But even if you're really paranoid about stuff, it's best to file a patent application before you start really disseminating things. That's usually a good way to go. Now, what about patent attorneys? I think some people have some concerns about talking to patent attorneys about things like an initial consultation. Okay, so even initial disclosures, there's some semblance of the attorney-client privilege that holds. Attorneys aren't, they aren't allowed to disseminate what you do. I mean, that would be a huge violation. But more than that, it's just not really, a thing that is going to, it's not a public disclosure, right? And then patent attorneys, people think, oh, well, you work in technology and somehow you're going to be able to patent yourself and you're going to be able to go off and doing this. And I'll tell you from my perspective is that, that would make absolutely no sense for so many reasons. One is, my livelihood is based off of helping my clients protect their ideas and inventions. That's how I make my money, okay? I don't have the time to take some idea and to patent it and create a business. Like, again, that is really difficult to do. It's not an easy thing. It would be a second full-time job to do something like that. And there's still a lot of risk in those things. There's no guaranteed idea. I see great ideas all the time that fail. I see seemingly kind of silly, kind of crappy ideas do really well. It has to do with the person who can be able to turn an idea into a viable product, into a viable business, and push that forward. That's what it really takes. So people really discount, the difficulty there is in taking an idea to an invention. So a lot of times, I wouldn't worry too much about people stealing your ideas. What's more important is making sure that there aren't going to be any public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale. So things like talking to your spouse or a patent attorney or other consultants, it's totally fine to do those things. And when it comes to people kind of outside of that circle where there's no implied confidentiality or confidentiality based on, say, attorney-client privilege, have people sign a non-disclosure agreement. Like, so for instance, if let's say you don't really have a background in software and you come up with an app idea, you need to have developers kind of develop that for you, right? So you would want them to sign a non-disclosure agreement that says, hey, I'm not going to disclose this to other people, which, would forfeit your patent rights. And two, something that says, hey, we're not going to compete with you. We're not going to take this and we're not going to run with it ourselves, which again, very unlikely that's actually going to happen. So with folks like that, have a non-disclosure agreement to give you some semblance of safety. Now, what about folks like investors? You would think, yeah, I would want investors to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That's really important. I don't want them to go off and steal stuff. They're the ones with the money. They're the one with the connections. They need to sign an NDA. No, absolutely not. Do not try to have investors sign non-disclosure agreements. And it's like, well, why is that? Well, in the world of investing, investors are going to find that to be insulting and they'll peg you as a newbie. Just the culture of investors is that, like, look, I don't want to sign non-disclosure agreements. I don't want to be bound by that. If you don't trust me, don't tell me about your idea. And I don't want to work with you if you're going to make me sign an NDA. So just, so don't do that. The best thing to do is file at least a provisional patent application before you start talking to investors. And again, there would at least be implied confidentiality, as long as, they don't disseminate that via, social media or something, there's not going to be any public disclosure there, right? You would meet in an office or somewhere private and talk about, the investment opportunity. That's not going to forfeit patent rights. But the reason why you want to file that patent application is, again, so you don't have to think about having them file an NDA, which is just going to sink the whole thing from the get-go. And two, so you can talk about your idea openly. You filed at least a provisional patent application. You have priority to at least before when you met with this person, and that person knows, hey, it's patent pending. That it helps your pitch. It makes it more investable. That there's a patent portfolio, which is really attractive to those folks. And two, it gives them some pause on the rare event. Again, it very rarely, if ever, happens that people actually steal ideas. It gives people pause, even if they were to potentially think about doing that, knowing that, hey, they would have priority back to before when we talked. And so one, this person couldn't file a patent application afterwards because you would have priority. And two, even if they were to take the idea and run with it and put it out, you could potentially, go and get an issued patent, and then it would be enforceable against them. And so, it doesn't really make any sense. In addition to all the practicalities, it doesn't make any sense for them to steal your idea. So those are the ways to protect your ideas and inventions is, make sure that you file a patent application before a first public disclosure, public use, offer for sale. Make sure that people understand that there's at least implied confidentiality. Don't disseminate stuff via social media. Don't disseminate stuff via video, anything that even could be, potentially seen in a public kind of way. And make sure that people you talk to, that you trust them, that they're not going to do that as well.